I hooked up with someone else after my bridal shower. The vows he gave made the whole room go silent. Okay, so my name is Leah, and my wedding just crashed and burned a few days ago. And honestly, I should have seen it coming, but I didn't. Or maybe I did, and I just ignored it because I didn't want to face the truth. Either way, let me start from the beginning so you can understand how this whole mess happened. A few weeks before the wedding, I hosted my bridal shower in another city. I told everyone, my bridesmaids, my family, even my fiancé, that I just wanted a change of scenery. That I needed a breath of fresh air and a fun little getaway with my girls before the big day. And yeah, that sounded good on paper. But the real reason was that I wanted to see Marvin again. Marvin was this concierge at a hotel I stayed at a few months back when I went on a trip with my mom. And from the second I saw him, I was hooked. He had this smile that made my stomach do flips, and this way of talking that made me feel like I was the only person in the room. We flirted the whole time I was there, and one night we almost kissed. Like we were this close before my mom called me and ruined the moment. But before I left, we exchanged numbers and we'd been texting ever since. Nothing crazy, just little messages here and there, but enough to keep me thinking about him. The problem was, I was engaged, and not just engaged, I was weeks away from marrying a guy who honestly didn't deserve any of this. But I couldn't help it. I wanted to see Marvin one more time before I tied the knot, like some last little thrill before I settled down. So when the topic of my bridal shower came up, I made sure it happened at that hotel. My maid of honor, Jess, would do anything for me. So when I casually mentioned how much I loved that place, she took the hint and planned the whole thing there. And the second we walked through those hotel doors, and I saw Marvin standing behind the front desk, my heart just about jumped out of my chest. He recognized me right away and flashed me that same stupid smile that made me weak in the knees. The whole shower was a blur because all I could think about was finding a way to talk to him alone. And luckily, Jess had booked us a private lounge area. So when Marvin came by to check if we needed anything, I made sure to slip away from the group for a second. We talked, and it was not just small talk, more like real, flirty, dangerous talk. He asked if I was excited about the wedding, and I laughed it off like it was no big deal. Then he said something about how if things were different, maybe he'd be the one waiting for me at the altar. And I didn't shut it down. I should have, but I didn't. Instead, I let him take my hand and pull me into a quiet corner where no one could see us. Then we kissed, and believe me, it wasn't just a peck. It was a full-on, can't breathe, what are we doing kiss. And right there and then, I forgot about my fiancé, the wedding, everything. But then reality hit me like a bucket of ice water, and I pulled away. Marvin looked at me like he wanted more, and part of me wanted to give it to him, but I knew I couldn't. Not there, and definitely not then. So I went back to my bridal shower like nothing happened, smiled for pictures, laughed at jokes, and pretended I wasn't freaking out inside. But I felt my lips itching for Marvin. I wanted more of him, and I couldn't seem to get him off my mind. So I left the bridal shower, telling my friends that I needed to make an urgent call regarding the wedding. I went back to Marvin and I let him have me. We hooked up and I loved every moment of it. I know I messed up, but it only got messier from there. After that night at the bridal shower, I should have left, but I didn't. Instead, I went back to Marvin the next morning before we left the hotel. I told myself it was just one last time, like a final goodbye before I locked myself into marriage. But the truth is, I was addicted. The way he looked at me, the way he touched me, it was like I couldn't get enough. And yeah, I know how bad that sounds. The whole ride home, I was floating on some stupid high, replaying everything in my head. My bridesmaids were laughing and talking about the shower, but I was barely listening. All I could think about was Marvin. And for a second, I almost convinced myself that maybe I could have both my fiancé and him. Like maybe I could keep this little secret and nobody would ever find out. But then reality hit me like a slap in the face. A few days after I got back, one of my friends, let's call her Sarah, texted me out of the blue asking to meet up. And that was weird because we had just spent the whole weekend together at the bridal shower. Why did she need to talk to me alone? I was curious but restless as well, but I agreed. We met at a coffee shop, and the second I sat down, I knew something was wrong. Sarah wasn't smiling. She wasn't even making small talk. She just pulled out her phone, tapped the screen a few times, and slid it across the table to me. And there it was, a video of me and Marvin. My blood turned to ice. I couldn't even breathe. The video was blurry, but it was definitely us. Marvin's hands on me, my face, everything. I didn't even know someone had been recording. I didn't know how they'd recorded it. But there it was. Proof. I looked up at Sarah, my heart pounding so hard I thought I might pass out. And then she said the words that made my whole world drop. She said she needed a huge amount of money from me, and the repercussion of me not giving her the money was that she would send the video to my fiancé. Just like that, and there was no warning, no guilt on her face, just straight up blackmail. I couldn't even process it at first. This was Sarah, my friend, someone who had stood next to me at my bridal shower, laughing and drinking and pretending to be happy for me. And now she was holding my life over my head like it was some kind of game. I begged her to delete it. I told her I didn't have that kind of money, especially with the wedding fast approaching. I even tried to play it off like it wasn't a big deal, like my fiancé would understand. But she just smirked and said, "Then I guess he'll enjoy the show." I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw my coffee in her face, but mostly I just wanted to disappear. Because she was right. If my fiancé saw that video, it was over. Everything. The wedding, our future, my whole life. And the worst part is that I had no idea what to do. I left Sarah at that coffee shop with a promise. An empty promise, actually. I promised her that I'd get her the money. But the truth was that I had no idea where I was going to pull that kind of cash from. My bank account wasn't exactly overflowing, and asking my fiancé was out of the question. If he found out why I needed it, my life was over. So I did the only thing I could think of. I went to my parents. Now my mom and dad have been divorced since I was a kid, and they hate each other. Like, they really, really hate each other. They can't even be in the same room, and I was still curious about how they were going to get along at my wedding. Normally, I found their feud very annoying, but in this case, it worked in my favor. If I played my cards right, I could get half the money from each of them, and neither would ever know the other had pitched in. I started with my dad because he was the softer touch. I showed up at his house the next morning, looking as pathetic as possible. I had no makeup on. My hair was as messy as can be. I had the whole "I haven't slept in days" vibe. The second he saw me, he knew something was wrong. He called my name in surprise and asked what was going on. I took a deep breath and launched into the lie I'd rehearsed in my head all night. I called him Daddy because I knew that made him soft for me. I told him that I badly needed his help. He asked me what it was about, and when he asked that question, his face was so intense, like he was really worried. I told him that it was about the wedding. After I said that, his face immediately tightened, and he asked me what was wrong with the wedding plan. "Is that fiancé of yours having cold feet?" I remember that was the first question he asked me, and I shook my head. I told him that it was about money. I told him that my fiancé messed up and didn't budget right, and now we're short. Like, really short. I told him that if we didn't figure something out quickly, we might have to cancel the wedding. I watched his expression shift from concern to outright anger. He went on a blabbering rampage, calling my fiancé an idiot that didn't plan properly. I flinched. My fiancé wasn't an idiot. He was actually super organized, and I knew that I was damaging his image in my father's eyes. But it was a sacrifice I was willing to make because I needed my dad to be mad enough to hand over cash without asking too many questions. I began crying and told my father that he didn't need to be angry because I was angry enough for the both of us. I put on my best pretentious face. I acted like I was angry, sad, and disappointed as well, but I was trying to be supportive. I thought about my next words for a few seconds before I said them. But I don't want to embarrass him. He's already stressed, and if he finds out I came to you, it'll crush him. My dad grumbled something under his breath about irresponsible men, and then sighed and asked me how much I needed. I told him half the amount Sarah was demanding. He didn't even blink. He just pulled out his checkbook and wrote it out. I felt my heart leap inside my chest. He told me to listen very carefully as he was handing it over to me. He asked me to tell my fiancé that if he was going to be my husband, then he needed to get his act together. He told me that he wasn't going to bail my fiancé out again if he ever made any stupid mistakes. I thanked my father and gave him the tightest hug ever, like the world's biggest fraud. All I could think about after that was one down and one to go. Immediately after I left my dad's house, I went to my mom's house. Remember I said my dad was the softer touch. Now, my mom was as suspicious of everything as a detective, or like someone who had seen too many downsides of life. She could sniff out a lie from a mile away, so I had to switch up my story. I walked in looking happy this time. I had a big smile, and I practically barged into her house with an excited energy and hit her with an exciting lie. I told her that the wedding planner just told us that if we paid a little extra, we could upgrade everything. Better flowers, a live band, the works. I told her that it was a one-time offer, and I really wanted to do it, but we're a little short. She narrowed her eyes and asked me why my fiancé couldn't just cover it. I quickly responded with, "He is covering most of it, but this is just extra, for me, a surprise for us." She studied me for a long second, and I swear my soul left my body. But then, a miracle of miracles happened. She shrugged and asked me how much. I gave her the other half of the number, and she gave me an eye like I was asking for too much. I knew it wasn't exactly a modest sum, so I was scared that it was going to spook her. But luckily, she transferred it right then and there while telling me that I was lucky she loved me. But she then told me that next time, I should ask my future husband. I hugged her so happily, telling her that I would. I told her I loved her. I was immediately mentally calculating how fast I could get out of there, because my mom liked me hanging around whenever I came to see her. But I told her that I needed to go see the wedding planner immediately. I had the money. I should have felt relieved, right? But all I felt was sick. I'd just lied to both of my parents, dragged my fiancé's name through the mud, and for what? To cover up a mistake I made. A mistake I made more than once because I couldn't keep my hands off Marvin. But it was done. I texted Sarah, telling her that I had the money and asking her where she wanted to meet. She replied instantly, "Tonight, 8 p.m., same place." I stared at my phone for a little too long, feeling weird. Once I handed over that money, would this really be over? Or would she come back for more? I didn't know, but I didn't have a choice. I met Sarah at the same coffee shop after I had gotten out the half my father gave me from the bank. I was just going to transfer the other half to her. I had a big brown envelope of cash in my bag. It took up all the space, and I was so scared carrying that amount of cash. My hands were shaking so badly I almost spilled my latte when I sat down. She was already there, smirking like she'd won the lottery. She asked me if I got it, drumming her nails on the table. I looked at her with hate. I couldn't believe I considered her my friend. I clutched the strap of my bag and asked her to delete the video first. She rolled her eyes and asked to give her the money first. She even called my name like she was giving me a warning, and told me that she was not stupid, and that she was the one with all the power there, and I needed to follow her every instruction. I didn't trust her to follow through on her end of the deal, and I needed to see that she meant what she said, that she was going to delete it. We went back and forth like that for 5 solid minutes, her demanding, me resisting, both of us talking in hushed whispers so the barista wouldn't overhear. I then proposed a middle ground. I told her that I would give her half of the money first, then she'd delete the video, and I'd give her the rest. She laughed and told me that I was very delusional to think that I had the power to bargain with her. She got up like she wanted to leave and said, "You know what? I think I'll just send the video to you-know-who." Finally, I caved. I slid the envelope across the table, my heart beating weaker and weaker with every second that went. She thumbed through the bills and told me that it was only half. I told her that I was going to transfer the rest. She told me to do it right there, so I pulled out my phone and sent the other half to her. Once the money went through, I snapped. I asked her if she was finally happy. She grinned, pulled out her phone, and started talking like a motivational speaker. She said it was very funny how much a few minutes of a video was worth. With a few taps, she showed me the video, then deleted it right in front of me, even emptied her trash folder. "See? Gone. No backups," she said. I should have felt relief. Instead, I just felt dirty. I gave her a stern warning, telling her that if I ever saw her again, that meeting would not be a cordial one. She passively told me to relax, then stood up and told me that I wouldn't see her again. And just like that, she walked out, leaving me sitting there with my cold coffee and my crumbling conscience. A few weeks later, the D-Day finally came. My wedding day. Somehow, I convinced myself I'd gotten away with it. The morning of the wedding, I woke up giddy. I told myself that if it didn't rain, then the wedding was going to go well. It was just some superstitious nonsense I was using to convince myself that everything was going to go well. Thankfully, the sun was shining, and I felt like all my dreams had come true. My dress fit perfectly, and in just a few hours I'd be a missus, and all my secrets would be buried forever. My bridesmaids fussed over me, telling me how lucky I was, how in love my fiancé was. I ate it up. When the music started and I began my walk down the aisle, I swear I floated. Every head turned, and everyone gasped words of admiration. I knew I was radiant, especially because of how everyone looked at me like I was made of gold. And then I saw him, my fiancé. He was standing there at the altar with tears streaming down his face. He looked so emotional that I couldn't help it. My heart began to swell. He was crying. How many men do you know cry on their wedding day? I felt so lucky indeed. He was crying because he's so happy, because he can't believe he gets to marry me. I almost laughed at how perfect it all was. At least that was what I thought. Then the vows started. He went first. Leah, he began. His voice was cracking like he was filled with emotion. When people talk about love, they say it's about finding someone who makes your life better, someone who lifts you up. I beamed, waiting for him to complete it, so I could say something cocky or maybe blush. But he paused for a few seconds and swallowed a lump of saliva with his tears turning angry. But you are not that person. You're the worst thing that's ever happened to me. I regret the day I met you, and I would rather die than stand here and marry you today. My eyes popped open. The room went dead silent, and I think my heart stopped. He kept talking, saying more things, horrible, gutting things, but I didn't hear them. All I could hear was the sound of my arteries pumping blood so loudly in my ears. All I could see were the faces around us, my parents, his family, our friends, all staring in shock. No one moved. No one breathed. And then in the back of the room, I saw Sarah leaning against the doorframe with her arms crossed. Seeing her there, I just knew that she'd lied and she'd shown him the video anyway. I wanted to explode. I wanted to attack her right there, but I couldn't have expected what happened next. The silence after my fiancé's vows didn't last long. My father was the first one out of his seat, his face red with rage. "What the hell is wrong with you?" he roared at my fiancé, his voice shaking the whole church. He scolded my fiancé for humiliating me that way after I had to beg him to cover my fiancé's sorry-ass wedding expenses. I felt my stomach drop to the floor. All I could think and even mutter were the words, "No, no, no, no." My mother shot up next, her designer heels clicking as she stormed toward the altar, telling my fiancé that he should indeed be ashamed. She said that I came to them, being my parents, because my fiancé couldn't even handle the basics, and now he was standing at that altar trying to disgrace me. For the first time in over a decade, my parents were on the same side, united in their fury, and it was all because of my lies. My fiancé's face twisted in confusion. He asked what the hell they were talking about, stating that he paid for everything. He turned to me, his eyes searching mine for answers. But when he couldn't find anything, he called my name with distrust and asked me what I told my parents. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. What could I say? That I'd stolen from my parents to pay off a blackmailer? That I'd thrown my fiancé under the bus to cover up my own betrayal? My father wasn't waiting for an explanation. He called my fiancé a damn liar and stated everything that happened. He angrily said that I begged him not to say anything, but he couldn't keep quiet when my fiancé was a thankless and stupid man. He stated that I came to him weeks ago saying that my fiancé was broke, that he couldn't afford this wedding. He stated that he gave me thousands to cover your mistakes. The color drained from my fiancé's face. He looked at me like I was a stranger. He was like, "You what?" At that point, I wanted to disappear. The whispers in the room grew louder, guests shifting in their seats, and murmurs were filling up the hall. People were asking what was happening, and if I lied. My mother grabbed my arm, her nails digging in. With her eyes shining like a torch in the night, she asked me what I did with the money. I couldn't answer. My fiancé let out a bitter laugh, shaking his head, saying things like unbelievable and that I lied to my parents and stole from them. And for what? I still said nothing. He turned to the crowd. His voice was cracking with rage. He loudly announced that the wedding was off and that everyone could go home. Then he walked out. He didn't even bother to say anything else to me. As he walked out, the hall was quiet. All that I could hear was the sound of his shoes on the church floor. My own lies had wrecked me. I was in a very difficult situation right then. My parents were staring at me like I'd grown a second head. My mother's grip on my arm tightened. She called my full name and asked me to answer her immediately. She repeated the question, but this time her voice was a lot more stern. She gnashed her teeth and asked me where the money she had given to me was. I opened my mouth again, but all that came out was a choked sob. That's when the whispers turned to outright gossip. Guests started gathering their things, some shaking their heads, others shooting me looks of pity or disgust. A few even pulled out their phones, probably already texting the whole disaster to everyone who wasn't here. And in the back of the church, Sarah was still standing there. I wanted to scream. I wanted to run after my fiancé and beg for forgiveness. I wanted to turn back time and undo every single stupid decision I'd made since the moment I met Marvin. But I couldn't do any of that. All I could do was stand there in the middle of the aisle and watch as the life I thought I was going to have crumbled to pieces around me. I don't know how I'm going to mend all this. I need my fiancé back in my life. I want to marry him. So please, help me. Tell me what to do. Update. The hours after the wedding were hazy. I nearly went mad. The only thing my father said to me before he left was that he didn't care what I did with the money, and all he cared about was that I should get his money back to him. He didn't say anything else to me after that. It was my mother that was hell-bent on finding out what I did with it. I don't even remember how I got home, just that I was suddenly standing in my living room, still in my wedding dress, the lace torn from where I'd tripped, running out of the church. My phone had been blowing up nonstop, but I'd silenced it after the 50th message. I didn't need to read them to know what they said. How could you? What did you do? We're so disappointed in you. And so on. But none of that mattered right now. There was only one person I needed to see. Sarah, that crazy sly witch. I drove to her apartment like a woman who was possessed. My hands were shaking on the steering wheel. The entire ride I kept shouting the words I was going to say to her, how I'd scream at her, how I'd make her regret ever crossing me. I wanted to snap her like a twig, and the more I said those words, the angrier I got. By the time I got there, my rage was a living thing, pulsing under my skin. I didn't knock. I pounded on her door like I was trying to break it down. I shouted her name and basically commanded her to open the damn door. I screamed. For a second, nothing. Then just as I was about to kick it in, the lock clicked. Sarah opened the door, still in the same outfit she'd worn to the wedding. Her expression was unreadable. I asked her to give me my money back. No, I didn't ask, I demanded. My voice was raw. She didn't even flinch. She told me that she couldn't do that. I told her that she lied to me, and I shoved past her into the apartment. I was stamping my heels, clicking them angrily on the hardwood. I reminded her that she said she deleted the video, that she said there were no backups. She told me that she did delete it. She spoke so calmly, crossing her arms, that it made my blood boil. She told me that she kept her word. Before I could even think, I lunged at her, grabbing a fistful of her hair and yanking hard, asking her how the heck did my fiancé see it if she had deleted it. I yelled at her as I pulled her hair. Sarah shrieked, clawing at my hands, but I didn't let go. We crashed into her coffee table, knocking over a lamp, and then we were on the floor, scratching, pulling, screaming. I told her that she ruined my life while I kept trying to pin her down. She told me that she didn't do anything, then she kneeled me in the stomach. We were still tangled up when the door burst open and I heard someone shout, "Leah, stop!" I froze, I don't know why, but I did. I knew that voice. I turned, still gripping Sarah's hair, and there she was, my maid of honor, Jess, standing in the doorway. She looked horrified by my actions. I called her name and slowly loosened my grip on Sarah's hair. Sarah took the opportunity to shove me off, scrambling away. Jess stepped forward with her hands up like she was trying to calm a wild animal. She told me that I needed to stop because this wasn't Sarah's fault. I laughed and asked whose fault it was if it wasn't Sarah's, because I remember clearly that she was the one blackmailing me. Jess swallowed hard. Then quietly, she said that it was her. I didn't know what she meant, so I asked what she was talking about. She said she was the one that sent the video to my fiancé. Jess admitted it, and her voice was so steady, like she didn't even regret what she did. She said she stole it from Sarah's phone weeks ago. I felt like the floor had dropped out from under me. Jess took a deep breath before she continued. She said she couldn't let me marry my fiancé like that. Not with such a secret hanging over me. She said that a marriage that starts with secrets like this was never going to last. Yeah, she was right, but that wasn't her freaking choice to make. I just stared at her, my mind racing. This whole time it was Jess. I wanted to strangle her. Sarah scoffed, adjusting her shirt. She sarcastically told me thanks for almost making her bald. She told me that she wasn't even going to the wedding like she promised, but Jess made her come, saying that she wouldn't want to miss my wedding. Jess ignored her, her eyes locked on mine. She said she did it because she cared about me. She said I was about to make the biggest mistake of your life. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw something. I wanted to strangle both of them. Instead, I just stood there, my whole body trembling. I told her that she had no right. She said she knew that, but she'd do it again. I couldn't believe it. Sarah rolled her eyes and told me that she was not giving me the money back. She said she held up her end. She didn't send the video, so I should get out of her house. I looked between them, Sarah, the blackmailer who'd bled me dry, and Jess, the backstabbing friend who'd blown up my life, and realized something. I was surrounded by snakes. I just walked out and drove back to my house. I never saw my fiancé again, and my parents refused to speak to me. I hate my life.